I just got home from work, and at the end of my shift kind of got a little bit slow and basically just waiting for patients to leave. So I have my notebook. I always have my notebook. My notebook. I have different types of notebooks. I'm a collector notebooks. Anyways, I don't know if you can see the dots, but that's what this is. Because you can still write in like lines and stuff, but you just have more, in my opinion, freedom to do stuff and like organize your notes any which kind of way that you want. So like sometimes my notes are really straightforward, just going across the page. Sometimes I'll split them down and do like columns. I'll also be shoving all kinds of like sticky notes in there, just all over the place. So it was the end of the day. I had been thinking about this scene that I was going to be writing next. It follows the other scene that I talked about in my last writing vlog. Because of the different events that have happened, because of all the different events that have happened, the characters, these lovebirds, are being thrust out of their little bubble and are having to contend with all of these outside forces and are having to confront their opinions and their views on these different things that are happening and each other's views and opinions about the subjects and how they complement each other, but also how in the areas where they disagree. So I outlined this discussion that they're going to be having. It's going to be like the whole chapter is this discussion. It's not going to be a long chapter, but it will be an important discussion. And it's following the attack. And I just outlined like the full, like any notes that I needed beforehand about what happened. I'm like leaning out of the frame. There's any notes about what happened before or that are important to the conversation. And then I outlined the conversation and it goes all the way through here. It's like 2.5 pages of the conversation. And it's not written in a dialogue format. It's kind of like just, this is how he feels about this, or he says something along these lines and she responds this way because of XYZ. So it's kind of like explaining why they are saying what they're saying, and I know how they are going to respond, because I made these lists about like the characters and their traits and like their driving traits. It's covered up with sticky notes. So every like person has core values or beliefs or whatever that drive how they respond to different situations and how they view different things. So someone who grew up in this area, in this type of lifestyle, is going to have different views on a subject than someone else who grew up in like this other type of area in this different type of lifestyle. There's this thing called standpoint theory that's basically about how your environment and all the factors and forces in it that influence you define your perspective on things or inform your perspective on things. The characters have overlapping similarities in their background, but the root causes of those similarities and like their lives before these big events that happened in their childhood happened are different. They're like opposing almost. So my female main character lived in this area that was like very, open-minded, very accepting, very safe, until things went bad and stuff happened and she was thrust into this new situation where her family had to flee their country and she's essentially a refugee in this new country, and which has all of these different rules and different values that are different from how she was raised, and then her having to reconcile how she was raised with and like her beliefs from her like home country and her home culture with the values and beliefs in this country, and then there are many that are conflicting. And then the male main character is from a completely different type of background where it was very dangerous for him, and there was just always like this kind of sword dangling over his head that could drop at any moment and would like mean like his life was over or someone in his family's life was over. Like there was just like this constant threat over your head no matter what was happening, no matter if you were having like good times or bad times or whatever. There was just always like this threat just like hovering. So, and then he had to flee his country because that sword was about to be dropped on them, or the axe was going to come down, whatever the analogy is. And to avoid the consequences of whatever that was, him and his family fled. And so now they're both in this country, but they come from very different places. So where they come from and the situations that they grew up in inform how they view situations that are happening currently in this new country that they've been in for the past like decade or so. Or the whole first act, they've kind of been in this love bubble where they've kind of, you know, talked a bit about some of this other stuff, but it hasn't really come up, or it hasn't been like really like deep conversations or debates or whatever about anything in this specific area. They've talked about a bunch of other stuff that's important and has like cemented their bond, but now they're going to be discussing like current events and like current stuff that's affecting them and different people that they know and love, and or just like groups that they're a part of. And so this is going to be like the first time that they're really hashing all of this stuff out. And what also, the other thing that this conversation serves is that it will be an indication or kind of like a seed about their differences, and will they be able to overcome these differences, their clashing beliefs on certain things, or will it drive them apart? Spoiler alert, it is a lover's enemy story, so it'll probably drive them apart, but maybe not in the way you think, because I already know what makes them enemies, and it's part of this, but it's part of this other event that happens. But we're not there yet. That happens towards the end of the book. I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's what I have been working on today, and I'm so excited. Outlining important conversations is something that I do sometimes. I think I mentioned this in the other video as well. I will sometimes bullet point these major beats that are going to be happening within the conversation because I want to tailor it to go a certain way, or I want to include certain things in it, or there are certain things that need to be included in it, and that way I can make sure I have included everything. And so then when I go to write it, I can refer to this outline and be like, okay, because it's basically already done. I just have to now like write the actual dialogue and write the actual scene, but like the hard part of like figuring out how the conversation flows and stuff, like that's over with. I'm just like following this. And then also we're on the precipice of where the like major conflicts are going to be more present in the story now. Like they've been present the whole time, but they were kind of in the shadows, and now they're more front. Like you still don't know who all the bad guys are, but like there's going to be more stuff happening. There's going to be more events happening involving the conflict that is going to further illuminate the differences between how the two main characters are thinking about certain events and reacting to it, and how they think they should be handled, which will eventually force them apart in a way, or they become more distant, I should say. And it's kind of like we are going to enter that will they, won't they phase, or like, you know, the part in like rom-coms where like something happens and the characters like they kind of break up, but they're not really broken up, and it's just like, well, is, you know, their problem going to be resolved or not? In this situation, no, it's not going to be resolved, at least not in this book. So that's what's happening. And then I'll check back in when I write. It might be tonight. It's probably not going to be tonight. I'm probably about to go to sleep. So I am working on brainstorming for the midpoint of the story, or like the major actions of Act 2. And there's this character that I have who I know they're important, but I don't know what their motive is yet for like why they're there. I just know that I want this character to exist, but I don't have a clear motive for them, and I need to figure that out. So I've been brainstorming stuff about what her possible motives could be and what her connections are to other characters. And I think I've got somewhere. I think I figured out who she is. She's really only had like one major scene in the book so far where she has a conversation with the main character, and she's basically giving the main character a threat and an ultimatum. And during this exchange, it's very clear to the main character that this woman is like not the mastermind of whatever's going on. Like, she is very like smart and intelligent and like capable in her own right. And it's also clear to the main character that she has an extensive skill set of manipulation tactics, but it's also clear that this woman is a pawn, and like I said, she's not the mastermind. She's not the one calling the shots, making the decisions. She's just carrying out someone else's plan. And that was clear. That was something I discovered while writing that scene, that like, oh, she's the pawn, and usually she's able to get away with whatever she's doing. But when she was interacting with the main character is not easily like pushed around, and is very used to being in these sort of like political spaces where characters are, you know, using doublespeak or, you know, coded language, or the main character is very good at reading the subtext of a situation, especially in these sort of high stakes political situations. Like, she's able to understand the subtext of what's being said and what's being meant and what the different people, whatever. The antagonist, this character, is not used to dealing with people of that caliber. She's used to dealing with like normal, regular, smegular, everyday people who she's able to easily manipulate or threaten. And the main character was not that. And when the main character challenged her during this conversation, the antagonist was not expecting that, and kind of like let some of her like shock or whatever at the situation kind of bled through, and she kind of fumbled during this interaction, and the main character picked up on that, saw that, perceived it, clocked that away for later, and was able to turn the tables on the antagonist later on in the conversation, which then forced the antagonist to like up the stakes, to like force the main character's hand into doing what she wants. But again, from that initial conversation, the main character realized, you know, this woman is not, this is not her plan. She's just a pawn. And so what I was brainstorming was trying to figure out who was the mastermind. Like, what does she want? So I think I figured it out, and I think the direction that it's going to go in is going to be really interesting, and it's also going to help me introduce a character that becomes important. I don't know if they're going to be introduced in this book, but they are going to be an important character in the series, and I had been grappling with how to introduce them and when, and this just gave me the perfect way to do that. The other thing I have been brainstorming about is there are these 2 bits of information, really big information. There's this term, midpoint reversal, and it's where it's in the title. It happens around the midpoint of the story. Those bells are my cats. Oh my gosh, they're fighting on the bed. They're so cute. Midpoint reversal. A midpoint reversal is when the character either like learns some new information or has like an epiphany or whatever that recontextualizes everything that's happened previously in the story, but also changes how the character is able to move forward in the story, and it changes how they view everything. So there's 2 major pieces of information that my main character and the main love interest discover about each other that changes how the story moves forward. And it's where you kind of start to get into the enemy's territory. We're not there yet, but it definitely leads up. You're so cute. You're so cute. In my original outline, I had these bits of information being revealed at different points in the story. So essentially, the main character finds out that, what the heck? How does you open the closet? Here's teeny tiny. I don't remember what I was saying. I am trying to word these things in a way that I'm not spoiling or giving away parts of the story. So I will say it this way. So the main character learns a bit of information about the main love interest that's like really important, and then they're like adjusting to that, and then he learns information about the main character later in the story about things that she's involved in. And so originally they happen at different points in the story, but now I think that I want them to happen at the same time, because the original way in which the main love interest finds out the main character's secrets about what she's involved in do not work anymore, because the direction I've gone in the story is different than the direction I went in the outline to get to that point. So like I've changed certain events, so now I can't do what happened in the outline. It doesn't work anymore. So I need to figure out a way to incorporate that thing into the other scene I already had planned, where the main character finds out about the love interest secret, which that one still works. That scene is still in the story. I hope this is making sense and that I'm wording this correctly. But yeah, so now I'm trying to figure out how to adapt the original scene that I had, which was much shorter, into what I need it to be now. And I also think this will make it so much more interesting, because the original scene that I had, there's a masquerade ball, because we just love masquerade balls. Oh, it's so juicy. But there's a masquerade ball, and during the masquerade ball, some information is found out about the main love interest that it's shocking to the main character, and both of the characters have to reevaluate everything that they know about each other and kind of like how their relationship will be able to continue, if it does at all. And the original version of that scene was short, and I think the pacing of it is a bit off. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. I'm in brainstorming mode, and I am kind of stuck on what to do in this scene to incorporate it. Like it makes sense incorporating it. I can see it, like it's a vague, abstracted shape in my mind, and it's like almost clear. I gotta put the glasses on to see it clearly, or I gotta adjust the microscope knob so that it comes into focus, or whatever. I don't know where I'm going with these analogies, but it's like almost clear. There's just something that I need to figure out to make it click so that I can make it work. And so I decided to pull out the writer emergency pack. It's a stack of cards. I really like it. It can help you like think of a scene in a different way, or just like think of like a character or a situation in a different way, or it can offer you writing exercises that help you figure out or lead you to figure out whatever it is you need to figure out. And I'm gonna keep brainstorming, and then I'm probably gonna go to sleep because it's like midnight. Hello, so I am headed to the library. I've been going to this library for like a year, and I just found out that there's like a lake in the background and a walking trail. So I'm gonna go find somewhere to like sit down and chill out. And I've got my notebook and a book to read, to like take breaks and stuff. I'm just gonna hang out and brainstorm some things. Yee.